Hi, this is day one of a watercolour portraiture workshop here at Mackenzie. We've had a lovely group here. I always start really fumbly and stumbly. Anyway, here we have it, and this is beautiful Topaz, who's the model. All right. What was I going to say? Like I was saying to you, Claire, big paper day one, just because it helps to dissipate any tension I might be feeling, and I'm able to spread out. You know, the thing of cracking, I think we were talking about opening the chest is really helpful to feel confident, you know, and kind of standing like Wonder Woman for a minute. It's a TED Talk. There's a TED Talk about it. She says, stand like Wonder Woman for a couple of minutes. Amy Cuddy has a TED Talk on presence. And she said either that or the victory symbol, you know, your hands outstretched over your head. And it actually does something. And I think a lot of this is about confidence, isn't it? I think a huge amount of this, to really bring yourself to it, involves tuning into yourself, standing as proud as you can, like, you know, doing something that makes you feel brave. And I think that's maybe... And I mean, it's not life or death, but it's good practice for life or death stuff, I think. And this is maybe also a reason why I enjoy holding the big brush. It feels a bit like wielding a kind of powerful weapon or magical wand. I don't know. Anyway, so whatever it is that makes you feel settled in yourself, and because I feel like you kind of want to bring you to the table. You know, you want to bring yourself here. Yeah, so just tune in and see how you feel, Claire. Like it might be that you'll move on to this tomorrow, or you know. Yeah. And Kamachi's modelling tomorrow with her kimono. So, do you know Kamachi? Yeah. She's fantastic as well. So there might be more room to use the bigger sheet as well. Okay, and I recommend too that you have a kind of a runway behind you. So I might sit on your knee, Priscilla. Okay. And then, like, I used to have a lady who did a warm-up out in the gardens before we started. I found that was really nice, you know, just to kind of gather in and breathe. But it feels like you probably all have some sort of an idea, you know, your yoga, or some sort of an idea about even simply breathing before you begin, down into the belly, you know, having a softness in the belly and a softness in the knees, and shaking it off every so often, or not. Whatever it is that makes you feel settled. That's the thing. Okay. And maybe it's just me with my kind of slight nervousness around beginning. Okay, so as I look at Topaz, I'm noticing that there's the area of hair here, and then face here, and then quite a nice slight diagonal for the body leaning in here and steeper here. And so I'm visualizing the space that she's going to occupy on my piece of paper before I even begin. Now you want to have things on your table that you want to use your table well, so there's no need for all the tubes to be on there. You want to have your water within easy reach. If you're left-handed, is anyone left-handed here? So you'd have your tables on the left-hand side, maybe, so that you can easily access your water. And there's scrap paper. I'll give you each a piece of scrap paper afterwards, just if you want to test the consistency of the paint before putting it onto your picture, you know, the consistency and the colour, and see how it behaves on a vertical before putting it on there. That's the reason for that. Okay, and so we begin, and it's never, I know I've been doing this now for a long time, it's never anything but scary. I know, it's always kind of fresh, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't know what's going to happen really, and I suppose I am familiar with the brushes and everything and the colours that I use, but there is an element of risk associated, I think, with this that feels heartening. It's okay. It's okay. All right. I say that now. Okay. So I ran my palette under the tap before, about 15 minutes ago, so it's allowed the colours to limber up a little bit. They're softened. Okay. Now, I think I'll start with, I feel like I want to start with I'm going to start by stopping actually and breathing. Yeah, probably the hair. So I'm using the ultramarine blue and then some of the Van Dyke brown into that. So I'm trying to make a colour that'll represent the dark of the hair. Something like that kind of a shade, I think. And it's not all down here in a lake. It's when I mix it, I can see that it's hanging there vertically. So I know it's going to be not too runny, but it'll make a mark. The colour won't run away. That's why that's there too. Okay, so let's see. Gosh, it's been a while, alright. Although I painted Lily at home last week. I suppose it's different being here. Okay, so I'm looking at the dark, that there's a dark triangle over Topaz's ear, and I'm pulling the brush this way because that's the direction her hair is growing in. And really aiming to look keenly in order to find the part that I want to paint, and then doing my best to trust. So this is where the hair is meeting the top of the forehead, and I pull that back a little bit as well. Okay, and then behind the ear, there's a little touch of hair there as well. I mean, I've made it a bit bluer than brown just because I feel like I can make it warmer later on if I want to. The blue is more of a colour that recedes and it's easier to lift off than a lot of brown would be, I think. And feel free to ask anything.
How much paint have you
as
put
I'm working?
I have no idea how much paint you've put in.
Into each, about I suppose just one squirt, kind of. I don't know really. Do you see, like, I suppose about 5p worth, the size of a 5p piece maybe. And then it'll last for a long time. Like, you might end up using a lot of blue.
You wet the palette before and then just put the paint in?
No, I put you see, the paint was already in my palette.
Okay.
That's why I wet it then. That's a good question. The paint was dry, right, and then I wet it under the tap, and that means I don't have to put out fresh paint. Okay. You know, so that's quite handy. But if
you've got a virgin palette, how do you?
If you've got a virgin palette,
yeah,
then you put out your tube of paint and you watch, like you squirt out 5p piece worth of paint onto each bit, and then you watch that you don't end up with a lump of paint in the middle of your brush. So if you're picking up new paint from the tube, it'll probably be just about as wet as the ultramarine is there. If you're picking up new paint from your tube, just watch that it's not like that there's no big lumps. I think cross hatching is kind of handy, and then doing the same with the brown. So if I was making the colour of the hair there, I'm pretty clear there that there's no big lumps of colour in the brush. And I like to hold the brush, you might have noticed there, I like to hold the brush so that it's almost parallel with the paper, so that you're not really brushing on like that, but you're laying the colour on. And for the hair, I think it's quite a nice thing for it to catch parts of the paper and to not catch other parts of it. So there's a bit of a texture happening there. Was that all the questions about the palette there? Yeah. Okay. It's good. It's really helpful.
You haven't told me anything about what colours you put in, but I'll suss that one.
Yeah, the colours are in the email.
Yeah. Okay. It's all of them. 14.
Well, I think they're all the same as the ones I put in the email, but I'll go through each one with you as we're going around as well, and maybe I'll use them all here. Actually, that would be good, wouldn't it? So I'm just going to clean that out now. Am I? Oh gosh, look at that. Yeah, I maybe put a bit too much water into the palette originally. Okay, what was I going to do there now? It's good having a little break, like to build in pauses is helpful. So what I want to do when I look back at her there, I am actually going to make some more blue and brown, because I want to capture the hair that sits on the other side of the forehead that will explain for me the turn of the head a little bit. So just catching the hair that's on the other side of the forehead there, and it doesn't come down quite as low as the V on the triangle in front of her ear. Okay, and I think that's enough there. I might next, I'd say that the next kind of step for me that feels easiest and the simplest way of transferring the information, like I think that's what you'll be wanting to do is looking at the model, you'll be thinking, right, what's the simplest way I can transfer what I'm seeing to the paper? What's the next simplest move I can make that will cause it to look more like this face from this viewpoint at this turn of the head, do you know? And so the hair for me gets just on a different day it might be something different, and for you it'll be a different pathway. You'll maybe choose to do something different to begin with. I don't know, but my feeling next is that the jawline would be a helpful place to go next. So I'm going to clean out the middle there, and we'll get some more kitchen paper. Is handy. There's loads of kitchen paper if you don't have any. To have that beside you as well, because you might notice I'm touching the brush on the kitchen paper fairly often. Each side of the brush, after I wash it, I touch it on the kitchen paper so that it draws out most of the water. I put it into the water up until the metal bit so that it's all damp, and then touch it there on each side so that and it also lets me know if there's excess paint on the brush, so I needed to wash it a bit better there. It also maybe doesn't help that there's paint in my water container. Anyway, okay. So now, I never said Topaz. Is another like 10, 15 minutes okay? All right. Can someone tell me in 15 minutes? We'll say 15. Is that all right, everybody? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Claire. All right. So the next thing now is the shadow under the jaw. I think I'm going to use sap green, which looks like that. And I think I'm going to mix that with some cadmium red, which looks like that. So those two together. Are you able to see all right here? You can move about a little bit if I'm in the way the whole time. And also it's kind of helpful to hold your palette vertically so you can see the colour you're aiming for as you're making it. So there we have it now. The cadmium red and the sap green together, I think, make a fairly good colour for the shadow on the skin. I want to put a touch more green into that. It feels a little bit too warm for something that's going to be receding, describing a shadow. I want it to be a little bit cooler, so I'm putting a touch more green than red into the mix there. Okay, so now it looks a bit more like that. Gosh, yeah, that's all right. For some reason I see it, yeah, it'll be warmer as we get up towards the cheek, but for here it feels to me like it's quite cool. Now as I hold the brush down, the way more paint comes out, and I dried the brush because I think there's enough there that I can just pull it about instead of putting a lot of very wet paint on. So I'm judging the line down the way from the ear. There we are. And deciding how far out it comes in relation to this line of hair as well, how far the chin comes out. So I'm just going to plant a horizontal where I think the chin might be located. I mean, really looking is where it's at, you know. It's really keenly observing the part and then getting your bottle up, like, and trusting that what you've done is close enough for now and leave it alone. Okay, so there we have it. And then I'm going to use something similar. I think I'll use the same colour to describe the socket of the eye, the shadow of the socket of the eye, which sits above the ear a little bit, and it's pretty much central between the ear and the side of the face here. It feels like the socket of the eye here is almost central. So just putting some touches there to describe where the eye is located. And I think I'll move down to the slightly smaller brush there for the eyebrow, because there's a couple of directions to the eyebrow that describe the front plane of the face and the side plane of the face, kind of. Yeah. And I'm going to use this brush because it looks to me like that would be a bit closer to the length of the eyebrow that goes down the way there. I need a bit of paint on the brush though, don't I? Be helpful. Yeah. And as I'm painting the side of the eyebrow, I'm not thinking eyebrow, I'm thinking channel of light skin between eyebrow and hair. That's what I'm looking at there, to get the space of that channel. And on the other side of the nose, there's a kind of a C shape between the eyebrow, which is a tiny touch higher than this eyebrow, I think. It seems like it's just, maybe it's level, but maybe a tiny touch higher. And I'm going to find the shadow there, because that's what's going to reveal the light on the nose to me. So let's see now. Yeah, I'm bringing it across. Oh, and the hair has bled into it a bit. That's okay. So something like that. And then something to describe where the shadow beyond the nose meets the underside of the nose there, so that we can tell where the nose stops and the cheek beyond begins. And it looks to me like it's closer to the eyebrow, the bottom of the nose, than it is to the jawline there. So I know that I'm going to kind of come in roughly there-ish, I think. I'm going to put a little bit more skin colour into that now. So I've put in a bit more cadmium red into the mix there, in order that it reads as being a little bit warmer. And I've finished that shape that reads to me almost like a triangle, where the edge of the cheek meets the space around it, and then comes in to meet that shadow I've just painted under the nose there. And then there's a kind of almost like another triangular shape. Like I saw that as being slightly triangular, with the bottom of the nose, the edge of the face, and then the area where the lips are going to be meeting, which isn't really another straight line, but it helped me. It helps to kind of break things into simple shapes where you can. You doing all right there, Leslie? What do you think?
Yes, no, I'm just fascinated.
It's a bit kind of, it's a bit like hard, I suppose, or I don't know, it feels like it's all like building up and then hoping for the best. There's a lot of keeping the faith, do you know, and pauses in between marks. And I guess if you're familiar with drawing, it's a very different approach, because you're, instead of drawing a line to describe an edge, you're placing the edge maybe with the brush and pulling it. So as well as the edge, you're occupying the space that you've seen with a shape of colour. Okay. But it's great fun as well. Like, it's really very fulfilling as a process, because it's new every time. Like, you don't know, as I say, it's a lovely combination of what I'm seeing and drawing down, and what I feel. You know, I feel like it's all in the mix somehow. So it's kind of exciting. Okay, so I saw another triangle there on the other side. So it's like a long, thin triangle on the other side of Topaz's chin. Now that's a little bit extreme, because really there isn't such a definite line here on this side. So I'm going to just soften that line with some water. And as it's still wet, I can soften an edge like that easily enough. No, I was happy enough with the outside edge though, so I don't want to soften that side. And I think I'll just let the run come into that there. Okay, and it's probably a good time to locate the upper lip, or the line dividing the lips. It's interesting, you know, sometimes I feel like there's maybe so much focus, you know, you want to draw back regularly, so that because it's very easy to become like a dog chasing a scent, you know, really relentlessly pursuing one part. So I think there, you know, notice, keep a radar up for any kind of rising tension in the shoulders, shake it off. Yeah, because you can see the model from the viewpoint then as well, maybe. Keeping a radar up for any tension, and draw back, and it might cause you to do something general somewhere else instead of keeping going with the bit. So I'm going to stand back myself actually, and I think what I want to do is to bring in something bold here, like the collar. So as I stand back, I think it helps me to look at the collar, and just to draw out from the face and ease the pressure a bit, take the heat off all of this carry on. Okay, and again, like I was looking at the channel between the eyebrow and the hair, here I'm looking at the channel of neck between the jaw and the collar. And I noticed that the collar extends beautifully past the neck, behind, not as far as the back of the hair will, but it goes back quite a bit. And I'm okay with it extending a bit beyond where it is for now. I think it's helpful to make something a little bit bigger, because you can always eat back in afterwards. And as I move down, I notice that there's a bit more skin opening up as we go forward. So there's a nice triangle of skin there. And I could maybe even locate the neck, the other side of the neck. I'm just using the same colour. I'm going to use the smaller brush though, because it's actually the size of the smaller brush that shadow beyond the neck on the other side. If I was to draw a straight line up now from the neck through the face, it would be located something like about there. You know, it cuts through the eyebrow. And I think that eyebrow might even sit a little bit further back, but for now, I know that roughly it's going to cut through that eyebrow and the front of that dark bit of hair. So I'm fairly clear about where I want that line to be located as I paint the dark of the jacket up to meet it. So I'm pushing and lifting. Let's see. And I think what I want to do is pull up. I'm going to make it a bit darker, because if I'm going to the trouble of finding out where it is, I might as well be clear about locating it when I do know. So I've made the colour darker because it's the darkest part of the whole image, that shadow there. And I'm going to push up and lift as I meet the chin as well, even although the chin is a bit wet still, so it might feel a little bit risky, but it's okay. And then there's a curve here where the collar stops and the space around it starts, and it extends out. So that's a less slanted curve, I think, that edge there. Okay. There was I thinking that I'd become a lot more free when I started doing the jacket, and I'm still measuring quite carefully. But what I do know is yeah, maybe I could just do that. Okay. Yeah, because it does feel a little bit sometimes like it's all like really scary or something. And then when you do that, I'm just going to leave it. Okay. Now, I want to do a bit more in the face. How are we for time, Claire?
You've got about 6 minutes.
Oh, okay. That's good. So I can do, I'll just indicate where I think the mouth is, but actually I want to see, the whole reason for doing that was to expand out the way a little bit more. And I think I want to bring some more red in, and seeing that the collar goes like that, I think, and then it seems to go like that. You know, that there's a, there, I think, yeah. And then it crosses in front of Topaz's face. So we can feel the seated figure, the gesture of the seated figure there. And then how far back it comes. Just, I think it helps me to have the structure of the collar located a little bit, and then possibly the structure, the shoulder, the line where the shoulder stops and the space around it starts. And I place that line by considering where it would enter and exit the face, that line. And then if you don't know the width of it, you might consider how wide it would be in relation to the skin shape or something. And it looks to me like it's almost a vertical, so I'm happy enough that the runs did that there. And then there's a kind of a C shape here. Yeah, you might be cursing me for suggesting that she wears the jacket, but it's a lovely colour, and it provides a bit of structure. Take your time with it, and you know, I think it'll be quite a nice way to just something to anchor her down as well. It's nice and bold. Okay, so I'm going to clean all of that out now, because I want to find a bit more the position of things in the face. I was talking about doing the mouth, but I think I'm still going to go back to the sap green cadmium red mix in order to make, with my eyes half closed. So if you half close your eyes or take your glasses off, maybe you'll see the darks and lights that are significant in the face. And when you half close your eyes, you don't see eyelashes and details like that. You just see the landscape of the face, which I feel like is a very helpful thing to deselect all of the stuff that doesn't matter and pull out what will explain this face. Okay, so there's a shadow there with my eyes half closed. I'm noticing the shadow here begins in such a way that it would cut through the other eyebrow as well. It's kind of helpful to notice that. I'm just going to dry that off a touch, because that run now will maybe carry on up here in order to see, you know, it kind of goes into the area of the ear a little bit, and it runs down there too, so just breaking the boundary there allows it to paint itself a little bit where there's a softer edge. And now the shadow that sits underneath the nose. So there's a shadow that's attached to the nose that creates the other side of the triangle of light beneath the nose there. So a shadow attached to the nose here. And I think I'll even just leave it like that for now. And then I move down to the line dividing the lips. I'm noticing I'm gripping the palette like a vice-like grip. So I'm just gonna shake that off. Holy God, it's gas, isn't it? You think you're nice and relaxed and then actually not at all. Okay. So it's a good idea every so often to shake it off. Do you know, like, my children hate me saying this, but like Taylor Swift, you know, shake it off. Okay. And now I think I'll put a deeper tone into the colour to make the lips happen. So holding the brush like this will allow the colour to flow freely to the tip of the brush. And I'm looking at the direction the line dividing the lips is going in, slightly uphill, I think. So I think the corner of the mouth will be slightly lower on this side, eyes half closed again, and I'm creating the third side of that triangle. So the upper lip isn't a lip to me, it's just a direction that will finish the triangle I'm seeing. And I am noticing that it's closer to the nose, of course, than it is to the chin. So eyes half closed and finding its position. And then I think what I could do is place and push the brush to let the dark, I need a slightly smaller brush there.
What do you do if you think, oh no, it's wrong?
So you let it dry.
It's not there at all.
Yeah, and this won't be gospel-like. There's other layers. I'll do a bit more to this after lunch.
All right.
And there'll be
just leave it alone, let it dry.
Leave it alone, move on, and come back later. Okay. And it's actually the joy of this too is often in the evidence of your process, which is visible. The finding marks underneath, the things that the mouths that needed to shift slightly, and you'll gradually work up to the dark. This is all very light, and I'll just show you with the. It's good you're asking helpful questions here. So, for example, if I wanted to lift off in the hair there,
yeah.
I'm just using a damp brush.
When it's dry, though.
Yeah, if you want it to be a clean shape when it's dry. If you know straight away something is off, you could just print it off with a paper towel if you want to subdue the tone of it. But very often it's kind of nice to see something underneath. Yeah. And it can give a life to your work if you have the substance of the full process in the end. You know, the finding marks are all part of it. And that's why, in a way, it's kind of nice to extend beyond, because then you have something to respond to and model afterwards. And that's too why you might want to paint the dark colours so that you can retrieve the light. Yeah. You know, it's not that I'm putting loads of layers and pushing it into the paper, so the paper isn't distressed here. You can lift off. I don't know, some colours don't lift off as easily as others, but even in the eye area, you see how it's easy enough to lift off those colours there. And if it isn't, you can always inject a bit more dark beside the part you want to read as lighter. And that works too. I'll say more about that in the next part. But I'm going to finish off, it's probably time, 1 more minute and I'll finish off a little bit to do with the mouth and the chin there, and that'll be us then. You okay, Topaz? Thank you. Okay. Is it going to?
Lifting off, are you using a smaller brush?
Yeah, so these, I'm going to give you these, because remember I said I'd give you the brushes to lift off with.
Yes.
They're the ones that were on the link.
Yes.
These are craft brushes, and
Yes.
they're from Royal and Langnickel. They're a bit springier,
Yes.
and they come to a clean edge. And yeah, I find them better. And I don't want to be using the expensive ones to lift off either, I
Yes.
suppose. And they're not as firm, so
Yes.
it doesn't have the same effect. So it's a different brush, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to put a touch of ultramarine blue in there so that it gives the slightly darker line dividing the lips. And then I want to make a tone that will represent the shadow beneath the lower lip. That's the next point that I think is helpful in describing the landscape of the face. So something like that colour feels like it would be quite good there. And I'm going to create the shadow shape that I see beneath the lower lip by pushing it up. Like, you might find ways of using these brushes as you go that feel natural. It won't feel natural for a while. I've been painting with them for a good while now, so it feels like, I was likening it to driving a car in the gear stick. You know, after a while it feels natural and automatic, but go easy on yourself if you're not making the marks you want to make straight away. And at the same time, play. Use your scrap piece of paper to explore pushing up and pressing and, you know, and splashing, whatever. But the shape there, and often I'm surprised. I didn't know that was going to do what it just did there. I had a rough idea, but it's quite nice too to make chance an essential, like Paul Klee, make chance essential. Do something in your work that you're not in complete control of, in order that you have that excitement all the time in your belly. You want to always be a little bit excited, which if you're doing this for the first time, that'll be there anyway. Sorry. So you might want to do the opposite and keep yourself as calm as possible. I don't know. Okay, so let's see now. Yeah, maybe make that a little bit more clear. Okay. And I mean, the Topaz has a very particular, beautiful shape to her mouth that isn't captured yet here. But I'll just do one thing there to say what I was speaking about earlier, the thing of, you can print off. So I feel like the corners, maybe she's got this lovely upturned kind of quality at the edge, and I'm not getting it here. If I lift off, I think, a little bit of the lip, I think it'll give me an opportunity. It's still a bit there, but later on I'll make that a bit darker down lower. And, so there's a few options for moving things. But at the beginning, I love the quote about the wild goose. You can make a wild goose tame, but you can't make a tame goose wild. So although there has been a lot of reticence here, there's still, I think, a kind of boldness that maybe needs to be there too early on. So if the approach at the beginning is very tentative and careful, sometimes it means that the energy is but I think do whatever feels right for you, because you maybe need to have a slower approach at the very beginning with this. Topaz, thanks very much for that. Sorry, I'm talking away. Pardon? No, thank you very much. Yeah, sorry I went on for longer there. So go easy on yourselves with your beginning, whatever it is you feel to do, but make sure that you keep limbered up, and the time that you're touching the paper is very small in relation to the time you're looking and working up to the mark. So there's choosing your brush size, getting the colour and the consistency of paint, looking at the model, and then only then do you place it. So there's not an awful lot of painting, really. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's great to say it as well. I very often myself would do layer upon layer upon layer, and that's good too. There's different ways of arriving at the thing. Okay, so thanks very much for your attention. Does anyone want to ask anything or any observations?
You don't measure at all, do you? So it's, I'm used to measuring.
Yeah.
Face,
Do. Yeah, so your arm will be outstretched and you'll be.
Yeah.
Well, I would say use whatever it is that works for you to be able to see in the way needed for painting down what you see. So while maybe I'm not actually using the thumb thing, I am comparing the size of parts to each other, directions to each other. I think for me what I find most useful is to see the general shape of something. Like I thought first, this was almost like a parallelogram, the hair, and the face is a bit like an oval. And I would use the line of the pillar behind to see how much the edge of the face veers off that vertical. And you'll all have verticals behind you. So pace yourself and you will know what to do. Use whatever method works for you. And like use a pencil if you want to, but I think you can make a mark if you've measured. You can make a mark with the tip of the paintbrush or the corner of the brush to say, okay, that's how far out the chin will extend. And I might need to shift things back and pull things forward, but that's part of the joy of this process too. So as you get used to it, like a pencil, you'll be able to kind of push, or charcoal, you'll be able to push and move, manipulate the colour. This paper is very good for letting you lift off. It's the best watercolour paper I've found because it's sized so well for scooping back in and retrieving the light. Okay. I know it's not easy, is it? But like, okay, thanks very much for your attention. All the best.